morning, good afternoon, and good evening, guys. Celtic Warband here, and welcome to the Battle of Stamford Bridge. In this battle, we have Harold Godwinson and his English army marching across the bridge after defeating the lone Viking warrior. The Viking warrior played a crucial role in this battle because he delayed the English long enough to give Harold Hardrada and his men time to form up in a defensive position. He was able to slay over 40 English soldiers, and he was only defeated when, as legend says, an English soldier floated under the bridge in a half barrel and stabbed his spear up through the bridge and into the Vikings' unprotected groin. And now we have the vast host of English warriors marching up the slopes to engage the Vikings. As you can see, the English had about 10,000 infantry and 2,000 cavalry, and the Viking numbers were not so great. Hardrada had with him about 6,000 warriors, but he didn't have his full fighting force of 9,000 men. He had the 6,000 with him because the other 3,000 had to be left behind to guard the ships. And in addition to this, he also had another handicap. A lot of it was unfavorably hot the last few days, so a lot of his men had left their armor and equipment on the ships, so they weren't really in their full battle attire. But what he lacked in equipment, he definitely made up for in his army's skill. Now, you have to remember that Harold Hardrada and his Vikings were bred for war. These men had seen battle time and time again, whereas Harold Hardrada's units were mostly consisted of the feared or militia units that could be raised up in a time of war for a period of 3 months. So Harold Hardrada and his men had seen a lot more battle than Harold Godwinson and his army had. However, Harold Godwinson had with him a tight-knit group of core housecarls. Now, this was the center of his army, and the center of his army was rock solid. These men were also bred for war, and they went with Harold Godwinson on multiple campaigns. So it was anybody's battle at this point. The English had the numbers, and they were better equipped, but the Vikings had the skill. And Harold Hardrada himself was actually a very impressive warrior. I really would love to go into a video just on him himself, but just a little snippet which I found very interesting was that Harold Hardrada was actually the captain of the Varangian Guard for the Byzantine Empire for quite some time. He actually was a mercenary for the Kievan Rus, I believe, for quite some time, and then he eventually found his way to be captain of the Varangian Guard itself. So he was definitely a formidable opponent. But I am commanding the Vikings, or the Norse here. You can hear their battle cries as they see the English closing in on them. And I formed up in a defensive position up on this hill, and then we have the Hunted and his English forces moving forwards here, and it looks like the battle is actually about to begin. So we've got, what do we got moving up here? Looks like we've got a lot of Earl Stain, so he's sending forwards his tier 2 infantry right now. He's saving his more elite infantry for later on, especially these long-mailed axemen. He's got 2 units of them in wedge over here. These would represent the housecarls, and we've also got some royal huscarls here as well. So this is kind of the fighting force of Harold Godwinson's army, and of course Harold Godwinson himself, he is sitting right here. But I don't want to miss the actual collision of this battle, the first blood, if you will. And here we go. All of Harold Hardrada's Vikings are in a shield castle. And as soon as the battle begins, we're going to be sending forward some more swords to support these spears. Very nice. And I also have a few archers here. You can see I've got 4 units of armored archers, which we are trying to focus down these select feared archers here, which there are 4 of them. But my archers are doing a little bit better because I'm actually focusing 1 unit with 2. You can see we're doing some pretty significant damage to them there. And just right in front of them is this battle raging on. Swords clashing, axes hitting shields. It would be quite a terrifying sound. But it looks like we've already got a second line of reserves coming up here. This is probably some more heavily armored infantry. We've got some Earl Spearmen moving in to support the swords in melee. But there we go. I've broken some of the select feared archers. The second one is moving up. And over here as well, I think I have whittled this one down quite a bit. But the Vikings have to hold. Now, as soon as Harald Hardrada knew... Oh my goodness, wow. Yeah, that definitely broke their morale there. But as soon as Harald Hardrada found out that the English had arrived, because remember from the opening clip, the English utterly surprised the Vikings. Harald Hardrada did not think that Godwinson would be able to amass an army of such size and then move it across the whole length of England in a matter of days. So he was shocked to see that the English army had arrived, because his scouts told him that he was holding down in the south because of the threat from William the Conqueror, who was formerly known as William the Bastard from Normandy. He only got the name William the Conqueror after he was able to conquer England. But Harald Hardrada sent word to his 3,000 men that were by the ships and summoned them to the battle as quickly as they could get here. But I think it was almost 20 miles away from the ships, this battle. And here we go. Looks like we've got some mailed spearmen moving forwards. This is tier 3 spearmen, so this is going to be a tough nut to crack, especially for my tier 1 spear herdmen. But I believe I have some swords mixed in there as well, some tier 1 sword herdmen. Let's go ahead and jump into this battle, as they charge forwards. Heavily armored, as you can see. They've got the mail cuirass, and they've got their spear and shields. And a helmet as well. Very nice. Archers firing overhead. But yes, if we... Oh, hold on. I think some cavalry was coming over this flank, because I'm repositioning some of my forces. Yes, there is some cavalry over here. Let's go ahead and jump into this, because the Hunted and his cavalry were doing quite well on my flanks. I was getting pretty nervous throughout the entire battle. And you can see I formed up a little bit more of a defensive position to guard against that cavalry. I'm also using my archers to try to whittle them down before they do get a charge off on my lightly armored units. There we go, charging at the Viking Raiders, but a huge hit on them. And more men being pushed into the battle. I was trying to run away my great axes. I didn't want my great axes to soak up a lot of that charge. But after that initial charge, this cavalry should be slaughtered. I sent back in some more Viking Raiders and my great axes. Go ahead and jump out of there. I want to show you guys the other battle as well, because actually this battle line extends far into this forested area, which is just awesome. I love forested battles. But over here, the English were doing quite well. You can see that they're actually starting to break my flank over here, which is a little concerning. I'm sending over some more of my Viking Raiders as a secondary line to be pushed in should we need reinforcements. But these mailed spearmen are just so solid. Now, of course, some of you who do know this battle well may be saying, but wasn't there some English that fought for the Vikings as well? Yes, there was. Todzig, who is actually Harold Godwinson's nephew, I believe. He was a traitor to the English and Godwinson. He actually joined the Vikings, but a lot of the sources that I could find really didn't give me an accurate depiction of how many English were fighting with the Vikings, so I suspect it was minimal enough that nobody's needed to mention it. So I didn't represent this battle with any English here, but we do know that at least Todzig and a couple of his officials would have fought for the Vikings. We've got a little 3v2 going on here, with those archers still firing overhead. And you can see way off in the distance there, my great axes are going over to that flank, so I'm having some serious trouble containing the English over in the forested area below. Yeah, now we've got the elite mailed Huskarls going in. I tried to focus them down with my archers, but they managed to get into melee quickly enough that I didn't really get any kills on them, which is sad. because these mailed long axemen are going to rack up the kills. Where was the other one that went in? I think it actually went out over here, the mailed long axemen. We killed 20, but just in that charge, they're starting to break the sword herdman, and I've had to send in the Royal Huscarls with Harold Hardrada himself. And you can see that he's already shaken from that intense charge from the mailed long axes. I don't even know if I'd be able to find him in this. Oh my goodness. Some of these poor Vikings just getting slaughtered on the front lines. Hold, Vikings! Hold for reinforcements! You can do it! Yeah, you can see how thin the Viking line is getting over here. I'm trying to focus them down with my archers over here. There's a lot of English warriors and just a thin line of my spear herdmen holding them back. So the center is really a cause for concern over here, as you can see. Got one unit of spear herdmen over here, 74 men holding. And then we've got spear herdmen with the Royal Huscarls and the sword herdmen over here. But the Royal Huscarls have been sent in to go after Harold Hardrada as well, but they are down to 99 men. I'm actually getting some good flanking shots with my archers there. But going back into the forested fight here, you can see that I pushed in more Viking warriors, or Viking raiders, sorry. So we're slowly kind of beating back these mailed spearmen down to 72 men, and they are shaken at this point. But this battle line is just incredible. You can see how lightly armored the Vikings are compared to the English warriors, with the English warriors having full chainmail, and the Vikings mostly just have their clothes and then light padding over their chests and waists. Luckily, most of them did bring a helmet, though, which is good. Some of them you can see fighting without helmets. And look at this, we've got some more units coming in. I believe this, yeah, here comes the Huscarls. Huge charge bonus on them, just knocking back the Vikings. Yeah, and that shattered that unit of Viking raiders right there. Just intense. How am I holding in other areas? You can see that the Hunted, he hasn't pushed in this unit far enough to the battle line, and I'm actually focusing it down with my archers, which is excellent. But I think he eventually does notice this and then pushes them further into the battle line. Oh yeah, some good hits there. Yeah, there he goes. He's pushing them in a little bit further. Well done, well done. But the English still have quite a few reserves, as you can see. But we've controlled this flank over here. The cavalry has been slain, so my archers are pretty well protected for now. I've had to pull Hardrada back because he was just taking way too much damage. Way too much damage. There he is, looking back, seeing if he has any reserves to push in to hold this line. It looks like some of the units have been broken and have returned to the battle, so they are going back to the front lines. Orders are just being screamed up and down the lines here. Hold, men! My great axes are in here as well. They should be able to chew up these spears quite easily, even though they are lightly armored like this. But we've got the English with their reinforcements. They've now had to be called over here to this flank to hold strong because the Viking horn has been heard. And the reinforcements have arrived, guys. So this is the glimmer of hope for Harold Hardrada. We've got the reinforcements from the ships commanded by the Red Celt, and you can see that they are much more heavily armored, much more well-equipped. These Vikings are the Vikings that are feared in all of England. Got some Huskarls here, some shield biters in the front lines, mailed Hussar swordsmen, sorry. More Huskarls, more shield biters. Very, very elite force coming over here. And this is a little bit of a problem for the English. You can see them quickly trying to form a battle line here to get ready for this onslaught of Vikings. Quick, men, form a shield castle. Here come the shield biters. Counter-charging in. Very nice. So I'm sure there was just a huge roar of approval from Hardrada and his men seeing their reinforcements arrive, and I'm sure morale just skyrocketed at that point. However, there was one major problem with the reinforcements. They had to don their full attire, and then they had to charge, or basically run, the entire distance just to get to the battle. So by the time this reinforcement force made it here, at first it checked the English advance. They had to pull a lot of their troops away from Hardrada's line, so it did stall the battle for a bit, but many of these men were just utterly exhausted, and some of them actually died of exhaustion on the way to this battle. So with them being so exhausted, they weren't as effective as Hardrada would have hoped. And you can see that the English are easily able to defend here and make sure that they wrap up Hardrada and his forces before turning around and going after the reinforcement force from the ships. And there we go. My army has just been completely routed, and that frees up the Hunted's soldiers that were fighting on this front line to flank around and finish off these reinforcements. Look at this battle line here. Absolute carnage. So the Red Celt has his work cut out for him. You can see we've got 1,700 men here, 1,700 brave Vikings, but 3,246 English warriors that will be able to basically completely surround them, because all of the reinforcement forces are now engaged and they won't really easily be able to redeploy. However, they are much more heavily armored, so they're definitely ready for battle. Got a little duel here. Look at this. We've actually got some of the mailed long axemen who are wavering. I mean, they're exhausted because they've been fighting this other battle, and now they've had to be recalled to this other side. So some of them do break just from sheer exhaustion. And we've got the reinforcement force over here, the Hearthguard, with some shield biters and Huskarls. They're doing some work against the Earl's Thanes, but unfortunately we've got some of the Thanes and Spears just getting behind the lines, and now these Vikings will be completely surrounded. And with that, it looks like the hope of victory just slips away from the Vikings. And Harold Godwinson is ensured his victory against the Norse invasion from the north, which started out so successfully. There we go. It looks like some men are breaking from the Vikings in this other battle line. But if we just zoom out here, you can actually see the battle line travel through the trees and across this hilltop. And now at this little stone here, it's almost turned to a 90-degree angle, and we've got fighting down the slopes over here as well. And you can actually still see Stamford Bridge in the distance there. where it all began.
Run them down!
Over here we've got some more of the Earlstanes that have surrounded the shield biters and mailed hussar spearmen. We got some spears over here wavering. More spears and shield biters. These ones haven't been outflanked yet, so they're still holding strong, and they're actually starting to waver those mailed long axemen once again. More English warriors being sent into the battle line. Let's do another run across the battlefield here. Looks like the English have broken through, actually, in points of the battle. So now it just becomes pockets of fighting at this point. You can see that the Vikings over here, being completely surrounded, are basically fighting back to back. And there we go. The last of the English warriors have been pushed in to the battle line, but heavily outnumbered at this point. The Vikings just begin to crumble, dropping below 1,000 men and quickly descending. And it's just a total disaster for the Vikings at this point. I love the chanting, though. That's something that Thrones of Britannia has really hit on the head. I love those battle chants. Very, very awesome mechanic. Especially the fact that they start when the enemy gets within a certain distance, and then the whole battle line just erupts and cheers. Really, really nice touch there. But unfortunately, this was just not to be for the Vikings. You can see that all of the Huscarls over here, while some of them are starting to waver, the Hearthguard is completely surrounded at this point, and the last of these Vikings are being surrounded as well. Looks like some have come back from breaking. We've got some spears that were wavering and have come back to the battle. But at this point, there's just no hope. And it looks like Harold Godwinson has secured this victory. And there goes the general as well. So that is the end of Stamford Bridge, guys. A victory for the English and a defeat for the Vikings. So I hope you have enjoyed. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you in the next one.